Welcome back to another video, and today I'll be showcasing some of my favorites for summer eyeshadow palettes. Welcome back, and today we are doing an update on my sort of summer eyeshadow palette recommendations. So as usually I have always said that eyeshadow palettes are sort of my favorite thing with makeup products, and I do like to do these sort of seasonal recommendations. Of course you can wear any kind of makeup around the year, but I like to rotate my makeup seasonally, and today I would say that we will do this as we always do, so there will be a section for high-end palettes, then for drugstore, and then for indie. Unfortunately, I only do have one drugstore recommendation for this video, so sorry about that, but I do think that we do still have quite good variety of different kind of palettes with different kind of price points. But let's start going through the palettes that I have for this video. So, and something that I should have maybe said in the intro, so any palettes that I have not yet tried or like tried and reviewed on my channel are not going to be included. So I currently have two summer launches on my makeup rotation, but I haven't reviewed those palettes yet, so I'm not going to include those obviously in a favorite video, because I can't yet tell that are those going to be my favorites or is there going to be something that I don't like about them. But let's start with the sort of high-end recommendations. So first one is from Dior, and this is one of the Backstage palette, and this is actually their summer palette from last year. This was the 003 Warm Essential. And curious thing, Dior didn't bring a new Backstage palette for this summer. I have seen a sneak peek of a new Backstage palette. It floated around on Instagram, and I think also in some makeup Reddits, that they do have a Backstage palette coming, but so far I haven't seen it like officially announced, and I also haven't like seen it obviously in stores or anything. But I do think they are gonna have one like new Backstage palette at some point, but I don't think they'll be having a summer launch. I think their summer launch for the Backstage line were the sort of new blushes, and then they also redid their sort of powder blushes, and then they had this sort of like lip balms. But unfortunately no new Backstage palette for this summer, which is kind of bummer. It's been quite a while since we saw a new palette release from the Backstage line, because I do think this is actually the like one of the few like Dior palette lines that I would actually say that maybe are actually more worth the price than maybe some of their mainline queens that are quite pricey. I think it's quite obvious why I would recommend this for a summer palette. It's a very warm leaning palette. This is definitely one of the better quality palettes, because I have seen, since I've now tried a decent amount of this Backstage palette, that they aren't all equal in terms of quality. This has the very good quality where the shades are very pigmented, but they're very buttery. They are easy to work with even if you're someone who's not that experienced in makeup usage. And I do think that if you can still find this, I do think this is very summer appropriate when you look at the shades. Then next one, this is also from NARS, and warning, we are going to see quite a lot of warm tone palettes, because I do think that's what most people and I for example do associate with summer. So this is the Afterglow Irresistible palette. I'm a bit unsure what kind of release this was. I do think this was maybe something that NARS released last year, but I'm a bit unsure. Maybe I don't think this was maybe a summer release, but I do think it was quite appropriate for summer when you look at this. This isn't maybe as sort of like, it's a warm palette, but bit maybe warm, different kind of warm than for example Backstage palette I just showed. I do think this is like a warm pinky leaning palette rather than the Backstage one, which I just showed, which was more of a, let's say, yellow orangey leaning. Again, you will get very many summer appropriate looks, especially if you're maybe leaning into more towards like these maybe more neutral tones, but you like your sort of very warm neutral colors, then I think you're gonna be liking this one. Only gripe I have with this one is that I do think you are gonna get at some point like repetition with your looks. This isn't the most versatile palette. Also, I would have maybe wished a couple of more matte shades, but still, if you like NARS's eyeshadow palette quality and are thinking about a perfect summer palette from them, I don't think you can go wrong with this one. Then for something from Natasha Denona, another brand I'm a bit curious about that I haven't actually seen them doing a summer launch. Natasha Denona has been coming out with some liquid bronzing products for summer, but no new palettes at least so far. So this is the Bloom palette, and this was actually her, I think, spring release, but I actually do think instead of spring this makes me think a lot about summer, and again the same reason which applies to maybe the NARS one. This is this sort of very warm tone peachy pinky leaning palette, and I associate these kind of colors maybe more with spring, like summer rather than spring. With springtime I'm kind of more into the sort of pastel, maybe like more toned down colors. You definitely, I think if you're a neutral lover, Natasha Denona has like more neutral options. This definitely, even though it has a couple of neutral shades, at least when I reviewed this and on my reviews I show 3 demo looks from like bigger palettes, I didn't feel that the looks that I got with this one were particularly neutral leaning. So definitely if you are gonna buy this for summer, this is going to be very punchy, peachy, pink looks is what you're gonna get this one. I was a bit disappointed in my review for the fact that this didn't have the super shiny, sparkly shimmers that Natasha Denona, for example, had in her I Need a Nude palette. But I do still think that this is a very good option from high-end if you are looking for these kind of colors for summer. And I do think in terms of packaging, this was the best that I have seen with these midi-sized palettes. Then the last of the high ends, and this is an oldie. So this is the Pat McGrath and this is the Divine Rose 2. And I think if you buy this... why are these always so hard to get open? Well, this is very, yeah, okay, now we're okay. So, I think the formula, I have the one that's in the limited edition rose gold packaging. This is very reflective. So, if you buy this currently, I think you might not be able to get it in this kind of formula unless you're getting the palette from a retailer that might have the older batch of these palettes, because I do think that I think Pat McGrath no longer is with her brand, because I did see a news that she's now a creative director of another luxury brand, which was a bit confusing because her brand obviously still carries her name. But there was some talk that the bake shades that are, for example, included in this one, that the formula of those ones, Pat McGrath like personally owns those, which that can happen very often, that brand owners can own certain formulations. So if you buy this currently on Pat McGrath's website, then you are gonna get the color story, but I think the shimmer formulas are not gonna be the bake shades, which is kind of disappointing because the bake shades was the thing that made this special. This is a very, again, quite bright pinky palette. I do think that this was I think after this palette, people were, it kind of like went downhill for Pat McGrath with the brand, because after this one we saw a lot of pinky palettes. There was a new mothership actually launched in the beginning of this year. I wasn't that much appealed to buy it. First reason was that because there were no longer the special shades and it was still as expensive as, for example, this was. So, and just generally the color story, it was kind of, there were like pops of green and a bit of purple which were new, but it kind of still did recycle some of the other shades. But I do think that if you have this in your collection, I do think summer is a good time to take this one out, because it has the pinks, it kind of has the golds, it's a very sort of midsummer-esque color story is what I would call this. Pat McGrath mattes have never been my favorite, but I can live with those because I do think that when you combine them with the shimmers, you still get very beautiful looks. But yeah, as I said, bit unsure that if you buy this currently, it might depend on the retailer what kind of formula you're gonna get, so be prepared that some of the palettes, depending how old the stock is that the retailer has, some of them might have the bake shades and some of them might not have the bake shades, so that is something that you have to consider if you're buying the motherships. But those were all the high-end palettes, and now I will show one of the drugstore palettes next, and then we will move to the sort of indie palettes, which are majority of this sort of like favorites video. So the only drugstore palette I have from Makeup Revolution, and this is one of their new Icon palette. This is in the shade True Icon, and I think it goes to the like same category that we maybe saw with maybe the NARS or the Natasha Denona palette, which is that we're getting these very warm colors. I think this is more of a, what I would say, a brown, pinkish leaning warm palette, maybe compared to the Natasha Denona palette which I showed, which was like quite more peachy than this one. I truly think that if we ignore the cream shades in this one, which I don't like using because those will cause the shades that you layer on top of them to crease because they are very emollient cream shades. So if we ignore the cream shades, I do think in terms of powder shadows, this is the best that Makeup Revolution has ever produced. I'm very happy that they redid their eyeshadow, even though I have seen that with some of their other releases, there still seems to be some like, there seems to be still some kind of like differences between the formulas. But if you buy these Icon palettes, these should have the like newest, better formula that Makeup Revolution does. You aren't again gonna get super lot of versatility with this one, but this is definitely again very this sort of summery. This makes me think of like summer beaches and beach sunsets when I look at this one. So if you are bowling on a drugstore and looking for a good summer palette, I would definitely go for these ones. As I said, the green shade is my favorite, but in terms of color story and just the powder formula, this is very good compared to what we usually saw from Revolution. Then let's go to the indie palettes, and we have quite a few. Yeah, so let's start with this one. So this is the Unearthly Cosmetics. This is High Temp palette. This was their summer release this last year. Actually, I was thinking that did Unearthly have... I don't think we have actually seen a summer release from Unearthly this year. So this is how it's looking, and I think it's very obvious. Like this is truly like if the previous palettes I showed for you were kind of warm tone, this is like warm tone but with steroids. So this is definitely, you don't have any like neutrals to balance this out. Okay, you can actually maybe have one brown in this one, but like you definitely have to like color if you buy this one. This is very beautiful. I was especially impressed because I had a bit of hit and miss luck with Unearthly's formulas previously, but with this one I truly felt that not only was the matte formula very spectacular, but also the like shimmers that they have put into this one, that was like the best shimmer formula that I felt that the brand had yet to produce. I really need to get using this one during this summer, because I do remember that this was actually one of the few palettes that made me actually like try out all matte looks, which is not something that I usually do. I very much like my shiny sparkly shimmers, but this was a very inspiring palette in one way that I actually also did just matte looks, because this is a more matte heavy palette. If you're still able to get this one, I would like 100% recommend this one. This has a beautiful quality, and if you like this sort of sunset color story, you can't really go wrong with this one. Then something that I think you are able to kind of get on a good offer on quite many retailers. So this is the Glamlight Garfield collection, and I don't think at the time this got a lot of hype because Glamlight was in a phase that they were releasing quite a lot of collections like back to back, and this kind of I think got lost with the other launches that they have. So I think it's pretty obvious why I'm again recommending this for summer palette, but I do think in terms of quality and considering that you can get this on sale. If you shop more indie brands on Europe, you can get this on Monolith Shop, but I also do believe that on Glamlight's own website, so if you're shopping from US, you have been able to get this on a very good discount. So if you love your like warm tone looks and you're looking for especially more affordable indie brands for summer, I would actually try the Garfield one, because I do think the quality of this one was very, very good. And Glamlight, generally the Glamlight palettes that I've done have had good quality, but with this one definitely there was something extra bit special about it, and especially the shimmers in this one, very beautiful, very sparkly. So yeah, this would be what I would say an affordable indie brand recommendation for summer. Then some European indie brands. So this is maybe a bit different from the palettes that we have seen so far. So this is from Glosscast, which is a Swedish indie brand, and this is the Lavender Skies palette. And as the name would imply, this is a very, what I would say, monochromatic palette. You're not gonna get a lot of versatility with this one, but this again goes to the, like, maybe the summer sunsets, especially where I live here in Europe. Usually during summers we do kind of see these, like, as the name implies, lavender skies more during the summertime, when there is just generally, I think the, like, daylight time is longer than compared to winter. So I do think this kind of goes with the vibe of the summer that for example, I'm used to. The gloss coat quality is very nice. Their mattes aren't perhaps the best mattes that I've tried from indie brands, but it's still a very nice matte quality. The shimmers are beautiful, and I do think that if this kind of lavender skies theme is something that appeals to during summer, I do think you're still able to get this one. Some gloss coat palettes are limited edition ones, but I do think this might still be available. So if you like this sort of lavender color theme for summer, okay, so I just dropped the palette and there's one matte shade is now broken. So I'm gonna have to be repressing that one, and we shall have to see. Hope that it will be recovered. But that was just okay. And there's one. I think there's altogether like 3 shimmers that. Oh yeah, that's gonna be very. Yeah. I'm gonna have to fixing this one, so I'm not gonna be raising it because there's like powder all over it. But people, if you do filming on YouTube, be careful with your palettes and don't drop them. That should be the lesson for today. Anyway, let's continue. So this is a newer palette that I tried. This is actually a launch that did happen last year, but I did feel when it launched, because it was more during fall time, I was already thinking that for summer that would be perfect. And then I was able to get it actually on sale on Monolith Shop, so I did manage to try this during springtime. So this is from Clarity, and this is the Clarity Rain palette, and this is a, what I would say, neutral palette that also has some colors. This is a very sort of big and quite heavy palette because the pans are magnetized, but I did say that if you have never tried anything from Clarity, I would actually maybe begin trying from this particular palette because you kind of get everything with this. I do think especially what I was surprised about positively was the matte quality. This has quite bright matte shades that can be hard to formulate, but all of them worked beautifully when I was trying them out, and also the shimmers, except for the one taupey shimmer that this has, were also very beautiful. It is a majority matte heavy palette, so you do have to like your matte shades in order to like this one, but I do think that if you're looking for something that has a bit more color for summer, but you also want to have sort of your safe neutrals, I do think this is a very good palette to try out. And yeah, positively surprised, and I'm kind of waiting for maybe newer palettes from Clarity and maybe trying another one because I do think the quality of this one was pretty awesome. So then something from Odin's Eye, and this is was a collaboration palette, so unfortunately I don't think you're able to try this one or buy this one anymore, but if you have this, this could actually be a good summer option. So this is the Angelica Nyqvist and Odin's Eye second collaboration. This actually is from a Halloween collection. This is called the Little Ghost palette. They had two palettes to go with this collection. And I think this goes for those of you who really want something colorful and maybe like half and half, like some cool tones and then some warm tones. So this, I think it's a pretty smart palette that it has like warm tone shades. You can get a warm tone look, but then it has this sort of cooler bluish and purple shades in it, and then you can of course mix and match. I do categorize this as summer palette because all of these colors are this sort of very bright, almost like primary kind of colors. And I do also think that the shimmer formula in this one, very good Odin's Eye quality, even though their quality has been kind of hit and miss during the last couple of years. But with this collection at least I felt the quality was the good quality that they have. So I think that if you did buy this and you'd be maybe thinking that is this just something exclusive to use at Halloween, I actually don't gravitate towards this one during fall time because my fall preference is a bit too bright, but for summer I actually think this would be perfect if you are a colorful look lover. Then the last of the recommendations, and I think again this might be a palette that might be or might not be available because this was this brand's like first ever eyeshadow palette. So this is from Cosmic Beauty and this is the Royal Rose palette. So obviously Cosmic Beauty has come out with a lot of palettes after this one, but I do think for me, again, this goes to the colorful summer palette lover. This does have also neutrals, but again, this is a majority very like bright colored eyeshadow palette, which for me like screams summer. I do like also the kind of fact that we do have kind of, this again makes me think of maybe like summer or beaches and holiday, because we kind of have this pop of like blue and pop of like bright green, then we kind of have a bit of yellow, and then we have some bright pinks and reds in this one, but we do have like of course a couple of like some neutrals to balance out. So I think if you did get this when the brand originally launched this, or if you are able to still get this from Cosmic Beauty's website, I actually do think that this is a very nice summer color story. I will only say that the shimmer formula isn't as sparkly and maybe as dimensional as the newest shimmers in their newest palette. Their shimmer formula has definitely come the furthest from compared to like when you compare the shimmer formulas what they had in this one, but I do think the matte quality has been pretty consistent, and in this one I do still feel that even though it's an older palette, their matte quality is still very superb because Cosmic Beauty is known for being able to formulate these really very colorful shades, but they are doing it at a very affordable price point. But yeah, so if you have this or if you can still get it, I'd still recommend it. So one broken palette later, we did manage to film this. Yeah, I'm kind of the lavender. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm stuck with the lavender. I think what I might actually do with the Lavender Skies palette, because I'm gonna check that if it is still available on Gloss God's website, because it's not a palette. I do reach for it like a couple of times during the year, but it would maybe a palette that I would maybe rather just re-buy in a completely new one rather than, because there are like almost 4 shades that I actually checked that are broken, and repressing 4 shades, that's like a lot of hassle and a lot of work. But yeah, I'm a bit bummed about it, but as I said, this is a lesson for us all. Treat your makeup with respect and don't throw it around or anything, because yeah, that can be costly for you. It's not the end of the world. I have a very large eyeshadow collection. I just did a like eyeshadow palette declutter in my channel. You can go and watch the video on my declutter playlist, but even after declutter I still have plenty of palettes, and I will just have to, I think what I will do is that I will actually just bin the broken palette because there are so many shades broken, and see if I'm able to rebuy it, and the next time I'm gonna make a Gloss Gods order I will just rebuy the palette. But I will first check. If it's not available then I might try to repress it, but because there are so many shades of it are now broken, I am kind of a bit concerned of repressing all of them, because especially with the matte shades, repressing those is a bit more difficult than shimmers, because the matte formula, it's more I think finicky when you start doing things with it afterwards. But yeah, a bit of a bummer, but anyway, I do hope that despite having one palette as a victim in this video, I do hope that you did enjoy watching it, and hopefully my maybe my recommendations did make you maybe want to dig out some of your older palettes, because I definitely do think that with makeup we are always like focusing on the new, but I would hope that these kind of videos would inspire you to also use the palettes that you already have in your collection. If you like this video, push the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell button if you want to get notifications from future content. You can also find me with the same nickname, Makeup Hedgehog, on Instagram. I hope I'll see you in another video. Bye bye!